I'm your Akago, bringing you randomness straight from my crazy little head. You know, I love British people. They're so delightfully quirky, as well as famous for several things like tea, Big Ben, and of course good TV shows. And it just so happens they created one of my favorite series of all time. I am of course talking about Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, a cult classic created by Jerry Anderson, the man who was also behind the children's TV phenomenon Thunderbirds. Oh, hang on, I think I better take this. Yo.
Excuse me, what the hell are you doing?
Can't you tell? I'm reviewing.
Reviewing what, exactly?
Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, of course.
Oh, really? I thought I made it quite clear you were going to review the Doctor Who TV movie next.
Yeah, well, I got started on that, but I needed a break.
A break? A break? You break in your own time! If it's breaking you want, how about I make you review Dragon Ball Evolution instead?
No! No! Oh God! Oh dear God in heaven! No! Please! Anything but that! Have mercy, MC!
In that case, get your rear end gear and get cracking! And don't call me MC!
Yes, sir! Right!
As you might remember from my last review, the original series of Doctor Who ran for over 25 years before being cancelled in 1989 due to the show's low ratings that were believed to be caused by being put up against the, at the time, far more popular Coronation Street on BBC's big competitor ITV, among other things. And so for many years the fans had to take solace in reruns, novels, and, God help you, video games, while many plans for a revival were tossed about. But then finally in 1996, a collaboration between the BBC and American TV network Fox resulted in the Doctor Who TV movie, intended as a backdoor pilot for a completely new series. Fans were practically frothing at the mouth, eager to see the heroic Time Lord in an all-new adventure. Would he be going up against the Daleks, the Master, the Cybermen? It was the most exciting event in many a fan's lives. When the time came for them to finally actually see it, most of them ended up frothing for wholly different reasons, cause it wasn't really all that good.
For one, it pisses all over established continuity. And I don't just mean it contradicts one thing the Doctor may have said in episode 175 a decade ago. It fucks around with some very fundamental plot elements in Doctor Who lore. Second, if this was meant to serve as a pilot, and by that I particularly mean introduce new people to the show, it totally does not do its job, as it barely even explains the basic premise. Newcomers are left completely in the dark from the very first minute, making this movie watchable pretty much only by die-hard Doctor Who fans, and they will inevitably get so annoyed with the transgressions and contradictions in the story so much, they'll say, fuck it, and go back to listening to their Doctor Who audiobooks. Oh, and speaking of story, it makes absolutely no fucking sense. And for a series that has featured such plots as The Land of Fiction, where Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels lives, and people get turned into fictional characters themselves or being squashed between giant books, robotic yetis controlled by a disembodied intelligence from outer space, and an identity-stealing explosion that leaves you without a face, that's saying quite a lot. But that's not even the worst thing about this movie. Oh no. Not by a long shot. The absolutely most heinous thing about it, it does not feel like Doctor Who at all. That's right. The movie called Doctor Who is almost, but not quite, entirely unlike Doctor Who. Well, no use dodging the issue anymore. Let's get this show on the road.
The movie opens with a shot of the planet Skaro, home of the dreaded Daleks. I should note Skaro was destroyed in the serial Remembrance of the Daleks, but since we are dealing with a time travel story, I guess I should shut the hell up.
It was on the planet Skaro that my old enemy, the Master, was finally put on trial. They say he listened calmly as his list of evil crimes was read, and sentence passed. Then he made his last, and I thought somewhat curious request. He demanded that I, the Doctor, a rival Time Lord, should take his remains back to our home planet, Gallifrey. It was a request they should never have granted.
Okay, we're not even a full minute into this movie and you've already lost all of the newcomers in the audience. Who's the Master? What's a Time Lord? Who's the Doctor? On top of that, it makes no sense either that the Daleks would put the Master on trial, much less let the Doctor, their mortal fucking enemy, collect his remains.
My darling! Me, the Doctor! What's the matter? Don't you recognize your mortal enemy?
And why do we never see the Daleks? Why are the Daleks never mentioned by name? And why do they sound like chipmunks? Well, whatever. We then come to the opening credits and that lovely theme song in full orchestral mode. A pretty nice rendition if you ask me. This is also the first time we see the time vortex as the TARDIS flies through it. Quite a nice taste of things to come. The newcomers, however, are only confused by this as they obviously have no idea that this is supposed to be the Doctor's ship.
The Time Lord has 13 lives, and the Master had used all of his. But rules never meant much to him. So, I stowed his remains safely for the voyage back, because even in death I couldn't trust him.
Yeah, he sure took that lesson to heart in future encounters, didn't he?
I am the Master and I have just been shot, and now I am dying. I am the Doctor and I am obviously very broken up about this. Now I will cremate him so that he will never return again. I am an enigmatic hand and I have come to retrieve the Master's ring so that I can bring him back to life in a later episode.
In all my travels through space and time, and nearing the end of my 7th life, I was finally beginning to realize that you could never be too careful.
Nearing the end of his life? I thought it was quite clear Time Lords could live forever, barring accidents. And yes, you're not seeing things, that is indeed Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor once again. One of the few redeeming things about this movie, if only slightly. But what the hell is up with his hair? The bald patch makes him look like Bob Hoskins. And whatever happened to Ace? She was still with him at the end of the original series. If she left, why don't we get an explanation for it? Anyway, as the Doctor sits down for a cup of tea, some music, and a good book, we also get a good look at the TARDIS interior, and it's, well, different from when we last saw it. The familiar sterile white roundels have been replaced by a Victorian steampunk-esque style, which may be visually pleasing, but in my opinion it just doesn't have the charm of the old look. It just looks too much like someone's house rather than an actual spaceship, which I guess makes sense since the Doctor pretty much lives there, but still. Oh, and the multitude of clocks, that's very subtle! Oh look, a pointless continuity reference! You'll find a lot of these throughout the movie, so... Of course it turns out that the Master, despite apparently being turned to ashes, was only mostly dead, as his casket begins to ominously shake around. Oh look, jelly babies! Although they do play a role later on in this movie, they don't really serve much of a purpose, so... Oh look, he's reading H.G. Wells' The Time Machine! Subtle! Oh look, the Victrola keeps repeating the word time! Subtle! Anyhow, it's not long before the casket breaks open, releasing the Master, who apparently has regressed into a snake-like creature that looks like it's composed of semen. And no, it's never explained how he got to be this way. The Master Snake then slithers into the TARDIS console, sending the thing spinning out of control. Oh, and get a load of the suspenseful orchestral music. Is this the most blasé Hollywoodish soundtrack you've ever heard, or what? Truth be told, I kinda have a soft spot for this movie's soundtrack, but it just feels so inappropriate for Doctor Who.
I don't know what the director was going for here, but that look on Sylvester's face certainly doesn't scream shock and worriment to me.
We then cut to Vancouver, San Francisco, 1999, where a gang war is currently in progress. Because that's what we want to see in Doctor Who, gang warfare. A few Asian youngsters, led by Chang Lee here, are cornered by a rival gang, and Lee's buddies are shot dead. The audience's scare factor for this is 0.0000001%. Just as Lee is about to be gunned down himself, however, the TARDIS materializes before him. The doctor steps out and immediately gets a bad case of lead poisoning for being so stupid as to not check whether it was safe to go out. Why is he leaving the TARDIS anyway? Shouldn't he be trying to stop the Master from escaping? The blaring sirens in the background scares the gang off as Lee goes to help the Doctor, who tries to warn him of the Master Snake oozing out of the TARDIS's keyhole, but to no avail. 2 words, Doc. Force fields.
Hold him there, old guy. Chang-Li will help you.
Hey, over here!
Wow. These effects certainly haven't aged gracefully, have they? Why is the Master suddenly acting like the T-1000? Soon enough, Lee and the Doctor are wheeled to a hospital by ambulance as the nurse, played by Eric Roberts, aka that guy from The Dark Knight that got pushed off a fire escape by Batman, tells Lee to sign a form for the Doctor, establishing that it's almost New Year's. Gee, I wonder if that will have any significance later on. Oh look, the Doctor's commonly used alias! Upon arriving at the hospital, the Doctor is taken in for surgery. While the bullets haven't caused any critical damage, the surgeons are baffled by the x-rays showing his 2 hearts. Of course, being unfamiliar with the Doctor's physiology, as well as being complete idiots, they think the image was caused by a doubled exposure, and the rapid heartbeats they're getting lead them to bring in cardiologist Grace Holloway, rather than, you know, taking another picture. Grace, who is currently at the opera with her boyfriend, is paged to come over to the hospital ASAP, and comes into the operating room still wearing her dress. Shouldn't she change out of that thing before doing major surgery on somebody? And hey, pointless cleavage, because that's what we want to see on Doctor Who. Boobs! Perry. Hell, Grace even puts on some Madame Butterfly in the background. I'm sure that won't adversely affect her concentration or anything. But as she prepares to cut into the Doctor, he suddenly opens his eyes, recognizing the music.
What are you about to do? Stop.
Mr. You're going to be alright.
No, I am not human. I am not like you.
Nobody like you, Mr. Smith.
Please, I need a beryllium atomic clock. This is 1999, isn't it?
Can't wait any longer, Grace.
But the Doctor's warning falls on deaf ears, and after getting a look at Grace's face, he finally succumbs to the anesthetic. Grace tries to ascertain the problem with a cardiac probe, but this proves to be a bad idea, as jabbing a probe into an alien's cardiovascular system turns out to be not the smartest thing to do, and the Doctor flatlines, letting out a last scream of terror before dropping dead.
So the newcomers in the audience have known the Seventh Doctor for a grand total of 15 minutes before he died, and thus have absolutely no emotional connection to the character whatsoever. While longtime fans, myself included, are absolutely outraged by how Sylvester McCoy's presence in this movie was utterly wasted, and how the Seventh Doctor is given the absolute lousiest send-off imaginable.
Lee is brought in, claiming to be a relative of the Doctor's, but Grace sees through his act as he's merely trying to steal the Doctor's possession, and thus he promptly legs it. Back at the home of Bruce the nurse, his wife is having trouble sleeping because of his snoring. Oh, the utter hilarity! But as it turns out, the Master Snake hitched a ride on the ambulances slithers out of Bruce's uniform. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, the cinematography briefly decides to imitate the title screen from good old Life and Death, as the Doctor's body is hauled to the morgue by Bulk and Skull here.
Hey man, you doing anything special New Year's Eve?
Going to the costume party.
Oh yeah, me too. Who you going as?
Wild Bill Hickok.
Right, cool. Who's that? John Doe, on the toe. Oh, we've got a nice autopsy booked for you tomorrow morning, mister. Followed by a sauna or Swedish herbal wrap. What would be your pleasure? 1 a.m. Hey! It's December 31st, 1999. Party on!
Well, at least he's not letting the gloominess of his profession get to him. A little levity in your work is never a bad thing, I guess.
The Doctor's promptly stuffed into the freezer while the Master Snake slithers its way into Eric Roberts' mouth, taking over his body and, more importantly, stopping his snoring. At the same time, the Doctor's regeneration finally kicks in, although with all the lightning it looks more like he's being hit with the quickening. Through the magic of CGI, Sylvester McCoy's face is morphed into Paul McGann, juxtaposed with Bulk here watching Frankenstein on TV while a thunderstorm rolls in outside. Subtle! The Doctor springs back to life and apparently is granted super strength by the regenerative process as he promptly breaks down the door to the meat locker with his bare hands, the sight of which causes Bulk to faint.
God, no!
Connie!
Confused and disoriented by the regeneration, the Doctor wanders around the darkened halls of the hospital, eventually stumbling upon an ungodly mess of a ward, abandoned and leaking all over. Dear Lord, is it common practice for hospitals to leave their under-construction wards easily accessible to their patients? Is it even under construction? If not, what the hell happened to this place? Did they admit Bruce Banner here or something? Whatever the case, as it turns out, the regeneration has left the Doctor with total amnesia.
Subtle! But seriously? Amnesia? That's the best plot they could come up with? There's absolutely no point to it. If they wanted to add a plot device to have the Doctor explain the story to us, that's what the companion is for. It's such an overdone cliche and there's absolutely no point to it, as we'll see later on.
Oh dear God, Eric! What you do in your own time is your own goddamn business. We don't need to see it on camera. Never mind, moving on. One completely inconspicuous cut to commercials later, it's morning, as the Doctor ransacks some lockers to find some clothes. Oh look, they're referencing the fact that Doctor wore a scarf once! At the same time, Lee is going through the stolen bag of goodies. Oh look, the fourth Doctor's yo-yo! The Doctor eventually settles on a neat dark green jacket that was part of some guy's New Year's Eve costume, while Lee finds the key to the TARDIS. The Master, on the other hand, is busy expositing to himself with an American accent.
This body won't last long. I need the Doctor's body.
Why? There's no reason whatsoever for him to have that, except for Eric Roberts being too lazy to adopt a proper British accent like the Master's always had.
Hell, I'm Dutch, and even I can do a better British accent than Eric bloody Roberts.
Seriously, this guy's one of the worst things about this movie, as 90% of the time he's so wooden he's practically a cardboard cutout, and the other 10% he manages to well out-ham even Anthony Ainley, who single-handedly gave the Master his reputation for being the Doctor's most camp adversary.
My web! My web!
And hey, the Master still has green cat eyes from when we last saw him on the planet of the cheetah people. I'd count this as a pointless continuity reference, but it does serve some purpose later on.
Oh, Doctor, soon I will have all your lives.
FYI, they're called regenerations, not lives. I know I'm nitpicking, but this is Doctor Who, damn it. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Grace is somewhat skeptical about Bulk's story of the disappearance of the Doctor's body. Speaking of whom, he's apparently been hanging around the hospital all night and is still trying to remember who he is.
Report to administration.
Don't call the police just yet, Curtis.
Wait, Curtis? Is that... Oh my god, it is! It's Dr. Merrick from Phantasmagoria 2!
That explains everything! Watch, I'll bet Blob is gonna turn out to be the mastermind behind this whole scheme.
Isn't it obvious?
Wow, subtle! They really have faith in the audience that they'll be able to understand that this is a time travel story, don't they?
Grace then goes to see hospital director Dr. Merrick here, who decides no one needs to know about the little incident with the Doctor that occurred the night before, and since the Doctor's body has already conveniently disappeared, he then burns the remaining evidence right there. There's the American healthcare system at work, folks. And Grace, being the level-headed one here, decides to quit. As she goes to leave, however, she's followed by the Doctor, as he recognizes her face.
But Jamie, we've met before.
I don't think so.
Yes, I think so. I know you. You're tired of life, but afraid of dying.
And now we come to my favorite part of this movie. Paul McGann's 8th Doctor. This guy just oozes this kind of naive, wild-eyed charm right from the beginning. Perfect for the part.
You're my only hope.
I'll call security.
Do you know who I am?
I don't care who you are. Leave me alone.
Oh, please, you must help me. You're a doctor.
Yeah, well, My oath just expired. Stand back. Ugh.
My hurts!
Oh hey, pointless gore.
It can't be.
What is this? What is it? Please. I have two hearts. You have to get me out of here before they kill me again. Please. Please, you have to help me. Try!
And there's that iron will of a Time Lord as well. The Master, in the meantime, is slowly retracing the Doctor's steps, and oh dear God, he has become the Terminator. Very subtle. Even when the Master was in his phase where he needlessly wore a ridiculous disguise every other week, he was being more subtle than this.
Did you want something?
What happened to the gunshot wound I brought in?
God, if this guy was more wooden, he'd be petrified.
Oh, yeah. Well...
Oh, hey! Pointless good.
Why does it always have to be fingernails? I'm sorry, guys. That's another 2 months.
Grace and the Doctor, in the meantime, have arrived at Grace's home. Grace wants to have a listen to the Doctor's heart.
Hearts. Plural.
While the Doctor's memories are slowly recovering bit by bit.
Lovely view.
Maybe you have selective amnesia brought on by shock.
Maybe. I can't remember.
Ah, there's that old doctorish wit. It's a shame we won't get to enjoy it for long.
Who are you?
I was dead too long this time. The anesthetic almost destroyed the regenerative process.
I'm gonna get a syringe. I'm gonna take some blood. I want to know what's going on.
Grace. Don't you see? I have 13 lives.
Regenerations! I know. I'm nitpicking. He might just be trying to dumb it down for Grace, but god damn it, all I'm asking for is a little consistency with the original series!
Please. Okay, you're trying to tell me that you've come back from the dead.
Yes.
No, sorry. The dead stay dead. You can't turn back time.
Yes, you can.
I'm not a child. Don't talk to me like I'm a child. Only children believe that crap. I am a doctor.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor. You dreamt you could hold back death. Isn't that true? Don't be sad, Grace. You'll do great things.
Well, I do like these little character moments. I just don't understand this shtick the Doctor's given in this movie. That he's able to read people's past and future. Sure, he's a Time Lord, but that doesn't make him omniscient or anything. Especially not since he's ever displayed anything like this before or since. And it doesn't lead to anything anyways.
Elsewhere, Lee has found the TARDIS and manages to get in using the key he snatched. After the obligatory "it's bigger on the inside" moment, who would be waiting for him inside but the Master? Wait a minute, how the fuck did he get in? Don't worry, we get an explanation for this later, but I promise you it's really fucking stupid.
This place is freaky enough.
Chang Li, that's your name, isn't it? Well, I never. The TARDIS really likes you.
Wait, what's this "the TARDIS really likes you" stuff all about? True, the TARDIS has always been kinda telepathic and had a will of its own, but that doesn't mean that just about anybody can pilot the damn thing or even just make it light up for that matter. The Master promptly recruits Chang Li as his sidekick, claiming that the Doctor stole his body and plans to use it for evil.
Well, what's in it for me?
You get to live.
That's right, trust the guy in the dark coat with the green cat eyes that just made a threat against your life. No harm will come from this, I'm sure. At Grace's home, the Doctor finally gets himself a pair of shoes, but is still unable to remember who he is. But a gentle nudge from Grace as they're walking outside leads to what is probably the defining moment for this Doctor.
I'm with my father. We're lying back in the grass. It's a warm Gallifreyan night.
Gallifreyan?
Gallifrey! Yes, this must be where I live. Now, where is that?
I've never heard of it. What do you remember?
A meteor storm. The sky above us was dancing with lights. Purple, green, brilliant yellow. Yes! Shoes? What? These shoes! They fit perfectly.
It's moments like these that make the movie almost worth watching. If not for the fact that they don't contribute anything to the story.
Speaking of which, back in the TARDIS, the Master is feeding more of his bullshit to Lee and leads him into the cloister room where the Eye of Harmony resides. Wait, what? Isn't the Eye of Harmony the black hole back on the Time Lord homeworld of Gallifrey that provides power for all their time traveling? If so, what the hell is it doing on the TARDIS? Okay, presumably it's just a spatio-temporal link to the actual Eye on Gallifrey, but why keep referring to it as the Eye then? The inconsistencies are just ridiculously amateur. I haven't even seen every episode of the original series, and even I know this much. If I can pick out these inconsistencies better than the fucking writers, why the hell should I even care about this movie? And why are there bats in the cloister room? And where did all these leaves come from? This set design just has no rhyme or reason to it other than to look dramatic.
Dear Lord, we're barely halfway into this movie and I'm already getting sick of it! Okay, moving on.
In order to find out where the Doctor is, the Master wants to open the eye. How exactly this works is never explained, and neither is the fact that the only way to open it is by scanning Chang Li's retinal pattern. Do I even have to point out how slipshod this writing is anymore? Anyway, the eye opens as the ominous not Latin chorus earns its paycheck for the day, and this causes the Doctor to somehow regain his memories, and in celebration, he performs one of the most controversial acts in Doctor Who history.
I know who I am!
Yeah, believe it or not, this was actually the first time in the show's history that he actually openly kissed someone, whereas normally he's always had an air of asexuality around him.
I was rather under the impression that Mr. Duggan was following me.
Oh, well, you're a beautiful woman, probably.
Of course, it kinda loses its impact when you consider some of the things that have happened since in the 2005 series.
Nom nom nom, nom nom. Nom nom nom. Nom nom nom. Nom nom nom.
Besides, the Doctor was going through a bit of a stressful period here, having just regenerated and everything. I think we can cut him some slack here.
I am the Doctor!
Good! Now do that again.
Okay, that was actually pretty funny.
With the eye open, however, the Master discovers a critical bit of information.
See that? That's the retinal structure of the human eye. The Doctor is half human.
And we're right back to running on Confusedville. Now, there have been attempts to justify this, to explain this, to even retcon this, but that doesn't stop this from making even a lick of sense. How does regeneration turn the Doctor half human? Sure, it's a dodgy process. He himself has admitted as much.
But it's a bit dodgy, this process.
But half human? How? Why? When? Is this supposed to make us associate better with him? Is this supposed to do anything other than fucking rip off Mr. Spock?
Mr. Spock?
Oh, never mind. Let's just move on. This movie's long enough as it is.
While the eye is open, however, the Master is able to see what the Doctor is seeing, and realizing this, the Doctor shuts his eyes and breaks down into some painfully strained exposition about the basic workings of the TARDIS and the Eye of Harmony. This, however, freaks Grace out, and she runs off.
We must get to the Doctor before he finds a clock.
Before he finds a what?
Before he finds a clock.
Roberts, try swallowing before you say your lines. I think you still have some semen stuck in your throat.
As it turns out, however, opening the eye will have catastrophic consequences for planet Earth, as the Doctor demonstrates by walking through a window and having apparently suddenly lost 20 pounds. The planet's molecular structure is changing, and by midnight will be sucked into oblivion. Seriously? Midnight? You can't get more cliché than that. Grace, meanwhile, still freaked out and incredulous to the Doctor's warnings, calls an ambulance, convinced that she's lost her mind. Perfectly logical response.
Scientists say that the freak conditions are due to the very slight fluctuations in the Earth's gravitational pull. Fluctuations that apparently only happen once every 1,000 years. Here's what our cameras in Hawaii saw.
I love humans. All of us seeing patterns in things that aren't there.
Seeing moments like this makes it all the more criminal that this Doctor couldn't get a better movie.
Now, didn't you say they'll see a clock getting started?
That's right. And, you know, it isn't just any old clock. It happens to be the most accurate atomic clock in the world. And
Wow, isn't that just convenient? Not to mention contrived? I'm also pretty sure that atomic clocks aren't that effing huge. But then the Master comes ringing, tipped off by Grace's phone call. But the Doctor obviously doesn't recognize the Master, having stolen a new body and all. And so the Doctor and Grace ride the ambulance to the Institute, or so they think, as along the way the Master's shades conveniently fall off after the ambulance is forced to make a sudden stop due to, I'm not kidding here, a truck full of live chickens blocking the road. With the Master revealed, he then proceeds to spit out what I guess is meant to be acid, hitting Grace's hand in the process, and the Doctor promptly gives him a face full of fire extinguisher in exchange before legging it.
Get it out of me! Get it out! Get it out of me!
Good God, this guy makes John Sims seem dignified and subtle.
Your Lord and Master stands on high, playing a track 3.
The Doctor and Grace, however, are soon stopped by a cop on a motorcycle, but the Doctor catches him off guard by offering him a jelly baby and then promptly doing this.
Stand aside before I shoot myself.
Of course, this great character moment is promptly shot down when Grace takes the gun and threatens the cop with it, as the two then hijack his motorcycle, while the Doctor, who ordinarily would scowl at anyone who so much threatened to harm a single hair on someone's head, doesn't even bat an eye at this.
What are we waiting for?
The road's still blocked.
This is an ambulance!
This is Akago Dojo!
And so a fairly standard and unspectacular chase scene ensues, which just sort of peters out after a minute as Lee takes a shortcut and the Doctor and Grace finally arrive at the Institute, only to find that they were beaten to the punch. Inside, the two sneak past security to get to the clock, as the Doctor then takes a beryllium chip from it which he needs to fix a TARDIS. On the way out, however, they're spotted by Lee and the Master, and then run into a bunch of guys that apparently got on the Master's bad side.
He slimed me.
Now that's some good old-fashioned Doctor and companion teamwork. A shame it had to happen this close to the end of the movie. Anyway, the two get back to the TARDIS to finally put things right.
Box?
Key.
Now, I always leave a spare key on a secret compartment above the door.
Great minds think alike. Up you go.
Ooh.
It's in a cubbyhole above the P.
So yeah, that's how the Master got in earlier. So, yeah, Doctor, you might want to consider getting rid of such a glaring, obvious security oversight!
Why a police box?
Its cloaking device got stuck on a previous misadventure.
Chameleon circuit! Consistency!
So they enter the TARDIS as the cloister bell signals the impending disaster, and Grace marvels at the whole bigger on the inside thing like all good companions do. The Doctor hooks up the gizmo he took, closing the Eye of Harmony somehow, but the eye's been open too long, so stuff is still set to blow up after midnight anyways, and the TARDIS doesn't have enough power left to move, and Grace is getting all huffy over this for some reason, causing the Doctor to rightfully facepalm until he has an idea. But then...
Look, I'll show you.
Whoa! I know she was kind of upset over the Doctor's rough driving earlier, but damn!
Yeah, it turns out that acid spit on her hand put her under the Master's mind control. When the Doctor wakes up, Lee and the Master are there, and oh dear God, what is he wearing?
I always dress for the occasion.
Okay, I think it's safe to say that Anthony Ainley has just officially been displaced as being the most camp master ever, in every sense of the word, and I do mean every sense of the word.
Let's just wrap this up. The Doctor's put into a get-up that in no way resembles a crown of thorns, insert symbolism here, and having no more use for Lee, the Master promptly snaps his neck. Boo frickety-hoo. Grace is snapped out of her trance so she can open the eye, beginning the process to transfer the Doctor's regenerations to the Master, which begins to tear the Earth apart, complete with crappy CGI. Grace, however, goes to put the Doctor's plan into operation, a task she most certainly isn't up to, yet somehow she manages to launch the TARDIS into temporal orbit, whatever the hell that is supposed to mean, averting the disaster somehow and stopping the transfer. The Master obviously is less than pleased, killing Grace while she's busy removing the Doctor's restraints. Damn, the companion mortality rate is going through the roof! This then leads into a wholly undignified fight scene between the two Time Lords that ends with the Master getting sucked into the eye, and of course I'm sure we'll never see him again.
Banished to the black hole!
The Doctor then plagiarizes Pieta as he mourns the loss of his dear companions until... Oh no. No! 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 You did not just fucking do that! You do not kill off someone only to cheaply bring them back to life again! Dear Rassilon in Time Lord Heaven or wherever the hell he may be, this movie sucks! And that's basically it. The eye closes, the Earth is saved, everyone celebrates the new year, Lee reconciles with the Doctor says goodbye to Lee and Grace, leaves them with some parting words of wisdom, has one last kiss, and then flies off in the TARDIS like nothing ever happened. The end!
This movie was a farce. A mishmash of ideas that doesn't even come close to matching the original series. And we should all be grateful for the fact that they never made a full series out of this.
Paul McGann's excellent 8th Doctor is overshadowed by a piss-poor, confusing script that plays fast and loose with established continuity, overblown Hollywoodish production values that are in no way reminiscent of Doctor Who, and a laughable villain who goes from being so stiff you start to wonder if he even has a pulse, to the campest thing since Maximilian Pegasus. Thankfully, Paul McGann's Doctor wasn't forgotten after this, getting a whole series of novels and audiobooks to himself to show off his stuff, and the TV series itself was finally successfully resurrected nearly a decade after this movie, proving there was still life left in the franchise, and the rest is history.
Now, if only someone could see fit to bring old Paul back at least once for a multi-Doctor episode. He definitely deserves another Tron camera. As for me, I'm out of here. I gotta go draw my sorrows in banana milkshakes. Oh no.
I am the Midi Keeper!
You gotta be fucking kidding me. Well, longtime fans, myself included, are absolutely outraged by how Sylvester McCoy's presence. Sylvester McCoy's presence in this movie was utterly wasted. And how the 7th Doctor... Yeah, I fucked it up. Thus has absolutely no connection to the character, no emotional connection. God, I need to write less complex scripts. Who can say why your heart sighs as your love lies only time? And who can say why your heart cries when your love lies only time? So the newcomers in the audience have known this. This guy makes John Sim look different.